is Gilbert Burns? Guys, please don't miss this. Don't miss this for multiple reasons. You want to know who Gilbert Burns is? Gilbert Burns is the dark horse of 170 pounds. And you've got the usual suspects, right? You got the champ, Kamara. You got Colby Covington. You no longer have Askren. I don't know that Maia sits in that top category because of his loss to Gilbert Burns. You've got Leon Edwards. Regardless of what travel issues we're dealing with right now, what a difference a day makes. That can change very quickly. Of course you've got Leon. Of course you've got Tyron Woodley. But what's more fun? In all fairness, what is more fun for a fan to cheer for than a dark horse? And the reason I feel compelled to even bring you this story is so many people are thinking that this is a light main event, that the former world champion and future Hall of Famer in Tyron Woodley taking on this guy, what's his name again? Gilbert Burns. Guys, if you sit in that school of thought, and I don't mean any of this to scold you, I just mean to inform you while we've still got a day left so that you can enjoy this main event. Okay, Gilbert Burns has won 7 of his last 8 fights, by the way, spread over 2 different weight classes. He was a 55-pounder who moved up. He was doing just fine at 155, moves up to 170. Well, all of a sudden, when he's not focusing a large part, 30% I would put it, of his efforts on beating the scale, he was able to put 100% of his efforts into beating his opponents, and that's exactly what he did. He starts beating everybody, but it was a slow rise. Right? Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Every walk of life, that is true, but maybe not more apparent and obvious than in the fight game. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. He wasn't very squeaky. So he's fighting on some of the undercards, and he has to use his success, just purely his wins and losses, to rise him up. So he goes from co-main event status, boom, he goes into main event status. It's the exact same rise that Dan Hooker has had. Dan Hooker's going around beating everybody up, but he's not opening his mouth. He's not chirping at all. He had to wait for his success to catch up. You might like that. You might not. Either way, it's the reality. But Hooker slides himself into a co-main event spot. He had been less than a main event since, and guess what? He's not going to be. But the same thing goes for Burns. Burns goes into a co-main event spot against Damian Maia, pulls an upset, not to mention the way that nobody thought he was going to do it. I mean, this is a battle of ground guys. You got a world champion in Damian Maia versus third in the world in Gilbert Burns. This is going to be a chess match on the ground. Pretty obvious, right? Not so fast. Nobody told Gilbert. He went out there, throws some heavy hands, a little bit wild too. Before you think you need to be technically right, that's a boxing term. That's a kickboxing term. In MMA with 4-ounce gloves, you just need to hit the target. And the wilder you are means you're presenting your opponent with something that he generally doesn't see in the training room. Generally, these professional top-ranked fighters are fighting other professional top-ranked guys who are very good with the skills, the ins and outs, some of the movements. You get a guy that, and he's wild. Olenek comes to mind. Burns comes to mind. Burns is as wild as Olenek, but per kappa, meaning for his size, he's more powerful. You don't want to be on your feet with this guy, man. He's a nut job. He's a nut with the way he'll throw. Everything's designed to hurt you. Nothing's designed to touch you, feel you out, see where you are. Boom, boom, he's looking to put you down. That's a problem. I'm offering you this because should Gilbert Burns get over in Tyron Woodley's, Gilbert Burns' life is going to be very different when we come and talk to each other next week. It's going to be very different. He's going to go from dark horse status, which is a lot of fun. He's going to go from a main eventer in there with a world champion, which is a great spot, to a contender who people are saying should be fighting for a championship, right? Then you're going to have the haters out there say, oh, he's not ready, he's not good enough. That's all part of it. Once that starts happening, that's when you know you're on the cusp of something. I mean, this is a very big deal for Gilbert Burns. The same respect must be shown to our former champion. Tyron Woodley has done some heavy lifting in this sport, some very heavy lifting within his own career. He's dealt with everything, ups, downs, people loving him, people teasing him, but he finds a way, and he comes back. And I do not think it would be fair for any of us to look at this fight ahead of time as the future Hall of Famer versus some guy named Gilbert Burns. No, you're just not paying attention. Sean Shelby's the one that made the fight. Sean Shelby's paying attention. These are 2 top guys. One of them's really well known, and one of them has won 7 of his last 8 over 2 different weight classes, including a knockout finish over the former #1 contender of 2 different divisions in Damian Maia. I offer that for you because Tyron Woodley has big aspirations. And like anybody, his time's running out. I mean, right, we all know it's a window. We all know it's a clock. His clock is ticking, and should he go out there and get over on Gilbert Burns, it would be very unfair if the community looked at it and goes, well, yeah, but you were supposed to win that one. You're supposed to win that one? You're supposed to beat a guy that 7 of 8 other guys couldn't do? I don't know that that's fair. Particularly if one guy dominates the other guy. I mean, he really deserves something. Don't miss this. You want to know about the storyline? You want to see a great fight? First off, I think you've got one. Only time's going to tell that. But you want to know the storylines for the welterweight division advancing through 2020? This fight is meaningful, particularly when you look on the back end of it, which is that our champion, who's healthy, who can make weight in 5 days, told me that personally, and wants a match, all of a sudden doesn't have one. And by the way, the likely suspects are now busy. Colby Covington is in the process of finding his new gym and his new training partners. I wouldn't suspect that somebody thinks he's got to just be ready like that when you're in a little bit of a limbo. Leon, stuck on rules that are way outside of his control in England. Masvidal, tied up, looks like he's going to be fighting with Nate. Darren Till has left the division. I mean, you see what I'm saying? When you start to look at the players that are left, when you start to look at the pieces that are left on the board, the winner of Gilbert Burns and Tyron Woodley is very meaningful moving forward. I'm not calling a number 1 contenders match. Nobody has declared this as a number 1 contenders match, but guys, number 1 contenders matches often happen organically. And I would just suggest for you, when you do look at the landscape right now, it does look very wide open. And there's some guys that can't just raise their hand and say, put me in, D. There's some guys that can't do that because they've already got a contract. They're already lined up. They already got other guys to fight. They're stuck in a different country and can't get on the airlines. This is a meaningful match. Where it goes and what happens after that, I'm not trying to oversell you on something here, but I would encourage you to not blow this one off. For the winner or the loser, there's a lot riding on this.